Hey everyone, today I'm sitting down with Valli Gideons, mother, author, and advocate. I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation, so let's get to it. Hi, Valli. Thank you so much for joining me on an episode of Hear Me Out. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm well. Thanks for having me, April.
Amazing. Well, I just want to say congratulations first off on celebrating 2 years of your book, Through the Fog. Can you tell me a little bit about this book and how it came to be?
First of all, I cannot believe it's been 2 years. It's crazy. Like time went so fast. Well, I think my first book was published February 2020. So
Oh.
we have a COVID book out there. Me and my daughter co-wrote it. Yeah, and so then I guess that's 2 years later, I published my own book. Um,
Amazing.
Yeah, and I really never had it's a very long story. I'll make short. I never really had a desire to write a book, even though growing up as a writer, people always said, you should write a book, you should write a book. But then, I thought the perfect project was writing that book with my daughter. And then fast forward 2 years, and wanting to put together a collection of my essays just to have something. I do speaking engagements and different events, and I wanted to have something just to leave the participants and guests with. And then when I started down that road of just wanting to collect essays, one of my best friends from college, who's also a writer, I was like, Val, I think this is more than just a collection of essays. I think you should really take a look at this. So I was crazy enough to decide to write a second book 2 years after the first book.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's so important too. I mean, we'll get a little bit into your story and your connection to hearing loss. Just sharing those essays that turned into a book. And it's important to get those out there. And like you said, leave it with people who are already following you. It's a great added piece. So you have also written a children's book, which you had just mentioned with your daughter. But before we get into that, let me tell tell the people a little bit about your story and your connection to hearing loss.
Okay, so my first son, his name is Battle, hence my blog called My Battle Call. Um, when he was born, it's kind of a typical story, no family history. He was born, I like to air quote, failed the infant screening. We came back 2 weeks later for what was called the ABR, never heard of it, didn't know what it was, expecting we would just find fluid in his ears, which is what
Okay.
was also shared with us. It's probably just fluid. And no, that was not the case. He had severe to profound hearing loss. And that started us down the road to learning about something we had no experience with. And then 20 months later, my daughter was also born with hearing loss. So we're 100%.
Wow. That's incredible. And I mean, back when because your children are older now, were there support groups? Like, was there that support that you needed or were looking for at the time?
That's such a great question. No, there was not. I mean, I know this is going to date me. I do share this in my book that there was no Facebook. There was no social
Right.
media. There was no groups to join unless it was, face to face. And we lived in Cleveland, Ohio at the time. My husband's in the military, and we had orders to Cleveland. We didn't live on a base. And you know, the only support we really found was through audiologists and our speech therapists and early interventionists, but those were not deaf people themselves,
Right.
and very little access to other kids. So it's kind of why both of my kids, so Battle's a senior in high school and Harper's a junior in high school, and they're both on board with sharing their stories. I share from my perspective. I'm very careful not to share their story.
Right.
And that they're willing to be somewhat public. I have to, I get their approval for every picture, everything that's shared. Um, my daughter's less inclined to let me share very much these days, but they know that it would have been so helpful for them when they were little to have more access to kids that were older. And so it's kind of fun to see that they now want to be kind of those mentors to kids. Because no, we did not have support.
That's so beautiful that you've taken, you know, what you've gone through and now you're helping others because you wish you had had that support. And I mean, it's so important though for parents who have children with hearing loss to have that as well as the children with the hearing loss. I mean, I'm a parent with hearing loss. My daughter doesn't have hearing loss. So it's just interesting and beautiful to see those different groups supporting one another and really blossoming. I find in the last couple of years, there are more and more groups available for people. And hopefully we can keep that going, you know, as we have these conversations, as we, you know, inform more people. And I think that's really incredible. Maybe I'll have to have your children on if they're willing to tell their hearing loss stories and how, um, you know, they can help others too.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
let's go back to the children's book you wrote with your daughter because it has to do with hearing loss, and that's so fun.
Yeah. So like I said, I was always told you should write a book, you should write a book. And I was like, yeah, you really have to have it in you to write a book because it's so much work. And then you also have to feel like compelled that you have a story to tell. And I just wasn't there. But I've told this story so many times now, but it's just like etched in my memory that my daughter came home from fourth grade. And as they do, the last day of school, dumped her full backpack on the sofa. You know, it's full of like the old snacks and notebooks and artwork, all the stuff they send home. You're like, thanks, teachers. And I started just kind of thumbing through it and came across her journal. And their fourth grade teacher, God love her, had done a daily prompt. And every day they wrote in their journal. And I just started thumbing through it and just was like captivated by all the things. Sometimes some were like just casual, like, what was the funnest thing you did this weekend? And then some were pretty profound questions like, what makes you unique? And I read her essay that she wrote about how she was unique because she was deaf. And just, I was like, this is the book, her story. And every kid who's deaf or hard of hearing or has any other challenge, I want this on their nightstand because although she was, you know, graduated the fifth grade, she still had like so much insight to like that this didn't hold her back and she was capable and wanted other kids to know that she's capable. And so we started flushing it out, and it took a while because I was dealing with a young person. But then once it came to fruition, like once we hired an illustrator and it like became real to her, she was into it.
That's
And
amazing. So where can people get this book and through the fog, all your
they're
books?
both on, yeah, they're both on Amazon. And
Okay.
Now Hear This, Harper Soars with Her Magic Ears is the kids' book. That is on Amazon, but Barnes and Noble and Goodreads and basically
Amazing.
anywhere
I'll
you
make sure
find
to
books.
link all of this below. That's fantastic. I love when people can turn their struggles into like a beautiful story to help others. I just think that's so empowering, especially at that young of an age too. Like you said, so profound and insightful. But when you're going through something like that, I do feel like you see the world so differently. That's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
That just gave me chills. I love that
I,
so much. So we've touched on this a little bit, but let's dive back into being a parent with children with hearing loss because I know that I have a lot of people listening that are very curious about what support groups are out there now. And if you had any recommendations of where to go to get these resources, we'll talk about your resources a little bit later, but just where you recommend people going or who to talk to if they are struggling to get their children the help they need.
well, as you know, from being someone who has hearing loss, there's like no one size fits all. I think finding a community that kind of speaks your language is key, like whether that's going through finding a deaf mentor or through deaf and hard of hearing school programs or through your speech therapists. Generally, they are building communities now. Our audiologist is a great resource to connecting families. But then, you know, there's so much out there now on social media. That's, you know, one of my big platform is Facebook and Instagram. Most big on what my kids called the dinosaur platform or Facebook, but that's where writers used to go because you can write, you know, share a lot of content. And I think my caution would be just sometimes too much information can be also not as it could be a negative thing if taking in too many opinions. And I think you really have to do what's best for your individual family and, kind of weed out the messages that don't really resonate with you. So don't overwhelm yourself for sure.
That's a really good point. And like you said, like hearing loss is not one size fits all. And so there are ways to kind of, like you said, find those people that speak your language because it's a lot of noise. Like it's a lot of stuff online, and some of it's good, some of it's bad, and some of it's just like bah. Like it's a lot to take
Yeah.
in. Now, are there any support groups or foundations that you like to turn to in addition to like social media?
I'm really a big advocate for the CARE project that's run by Johnny Saxton, and he's starting to have chapters all over the country. It's really a family support. So he does family retreats. I've been lucky enough to be a keynote speaker and a guest at one of them. Every time he hosts one, I'm so jealous I'm not there. I think Hands and Voices have chapters across the country, also a really good way of connecting and finding people who, again, like you said, speak your language, because it's a spectrum of all different types of people that are in those groups. And if you're going to send your as kids to deaf and hard of hearing schools, then yeah, there are schools that have programs for kids that are deaf and hard of hearing. That's just another excellent way to connect. So online is wonderful. I have met so many great friends online that then I've got to meet in real life. It's like such a blessing. But there's nothing like
That's
actually meeting people and getting together in real life.
it's so
So
fun.
yeah, it's my dream. I started it, and then 2020 and COVID hit. Planning a family retreat here, and I'm in California. I wanted to do something here where we brought families together and did guest speakers and um, a whole list of probably for a day, and see how that goes. It's still on my bucket list of things I want to do because I just think there's just nothing like connecting face to face with people.
Absolutely. I think that's so fun and that's so amazing. And one other thing about support groups, did you find finding groups for your children was helpful, or did they want to find groups, or like how did you navigate that situation? Like did you want to put them in something to find people who also had hearing loss at their age, or did you let it happen naturally?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because we were a military family. We did move a lot when they were little, so that finding community was even more challenging. Just community in general, it would take a while. And they both went to deaf and hard of hearing immersion program for preschool, but then after that transitioned into mainstream kindergarten and beyond. So they didn't really have access to a lot of hearing peers with hearing loss. And now, these years later, now it's like it's really up to them, and
Right.
I follow their lead. I mean, it became up to them very early on.
That's
And
amazing.
what,
I like that.
yeah. I mean, I wish we would have had more access when they were younger, but they're both open-minded people who know who they are, and I think they'll find the communities that they think best suit them.
And I think that's part of high school too, is also just finding those groups, hearing loss or not, like you'll just kind of find those people that you jive with. And that's
Yeah,
amazing. That's really awesome. So now I want to talk about your digital resources because I think these are so fun and so important for parents to know about because it's such an easy printout to give to coaches, to give to teachers. So let's talk about those.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of those because they were pretty organic in how they came to be. So my kids and I wrote to my teacher letter that we would give to teachers at the beginning of the school year, like in addition to their IEPs or 504 plans. So it wasn't a substitute for that. It was like a supplement to
Mhm.
add to that. And it kept getting longer and longer. Now I think 9 pages. And, once I was building my platform on Facebook, that was one of the biggest things I would hear people requesting. So I worked with my designer of my website and we created it into like a resource guide that people can There's a small fee because I paid a lot to have it designed. And
Yeah.
yeah, but so parents can download it and then either email it to all the school stuff. Like I recommend we would print it out and hand deliver and then also send the digital copy and say, yeah, you give it to the people who work in the lunchroom and the librarians and the front desk staff at a school, the nurses, like you give it to everyone so that everybody's kind of on the same page, just kind of breaking down what is hearing loss like for the kid. What are some things you can do to help?
That is amazing. I think that is such an important resource. And I'm so happy that you offer that because with hearing loss, I find I have to repeat myself so much because people forget. So having that printout, I think is just like so helpful
Yeah,
that you don't have to repeat yourself. Just here you go, just refer to this, like
yeah,
if you have
for
a question,
sure.
ask me, but like here you go. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's pretty
incredible.
cool too. People have sent me pictures. Like there's an area where you can personalize it, and then they've like attached a picture of their kid, and like it's an area like write what's specific and personal about each kid. So it's kind of like generic as far as there's one for cochlear implants and one for kids that utilize hearing aids, but then there's also an area to personalize it. And people
I love
over
that
the years
so
have,
much.
yeah, it's really cute. And we still give it, well, our special education coordinator still sends it to every teacher, even with my kids in high school.
That's incredible. That's so important though, like to have your like providers on board because like you said before, like it's not a one size fits all. So having like the core, hearing loss things that people need to remember, but then personalizing it like you've added, like that's just these are the resources we need people to know about. These are the things that people need to know exist and that are helpful because it's an overwhelming space and it's thank you. Thank you for creating those. That's amazing.
Thank you. And we did
And
one
they're
for
available.
coaches. We did
Oh,
one for
fun.
coaches too. That one is, I mean, again, how did your kids, because everyone knows my kids are athletes because, that's the one, those are the pictures they'll let me post of them playing their sports. In fact, my son's going to college next year to play football. Like, so it's like taking it all the way. Um, well, I guess the NFL would be all the way, but college level's pretty cool. And it's just, first of all, I didn't know my kids. It's not that they don't know kids can play sports, but how did you manage them being able to be playing sports at a competitive high level? Like, how did it work with coaches and teammates in this? And so we created a guide and we started giving it to our coaches. Oh gosh, way back when they were peewees. But we found like if we requested a meeting ahead of the season, not the first day of practice when it's like chaos, and we'd email them the guide and then we'd bring a copy of the guide and walk kind of through it. It was like setting the kids up for success. And also the coaches want to accommodate, but you cannot expect them to know how if you don't tell them. And I know some people, it's exhausting, yes, but you know what, that little bit pays huge dividends. Huge.
Absolutely. And it's fair to say, like, people who don't have hearing loss or someone in their life with hearing loss, they don't know. So
They don't.
it's kind of our role to educate them, as frustrating and like exhausting as it can be, but that's kind of what comes with it. Like, unfortunately, that's what you got to do. Like,
Yeah, I love that. Well said. I mean, I know it can be overwhelming, and it's not everybody's job who has a disability or whatever to educate everybody all the time. This
yeah,
is true. But I've never gotten exhausted by it. I understand people do not know. And once they know, that I don't think I've met anyone who doesn't want to accommodate. I just haven't. But they also need reminders because even family members, they
yeah,
forget. They
yeah.
forget.
Yeah, I tell people all the time because this was one thing that was hard for me to accept is don't take it personal. Like no one's thinking about you more than you. So if someone forgets something that you've told them, they're thinking about what they got going on. So like try not to take it personally and it's not like an attack on you by any means, but just friendly reminders or the printouts, like give it to them, be like, hey, keep this in your pocket, like next time you see me. Like, like
Yeah. Yeah,
it's very
that's so true.
beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
so you're sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I always present it like in an IEP or to a coach or whatever. Like my kids are completely capable. So this is not something that you have to walk on eggshells around. They're capable, but they just need to have access. And so you need to
Right.
just keep in mind, like a coach or a teacher, if your back is turned, they are going to miss some of or all of what you say. And so teachers, like, they'll say, oh my gosh, I realized for like a minute I had my back turned, and like they become very conscientious, and I've gotten feedback from teachers that it helps them be a better teacher to all students, because a
That's
lot of
amazing.
these accommodations help a lot of kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like that's well said. I mean, and everybody needs those reminders. So it's not even, and I think that's the thing with hearing loss is people, the stigma with hearing loss is they think hearing loss means like you can't do anything. Like, oh, can you drive? Well, yeah. Like I think there's just a lot of misconceptions about hearing loss. And I think
Yeah.
I'm hoping with these conversations, people will see that we just can't hear. Right? We can do a lot of things. We
Yeah.
just need a couple accommodations here and there, but like we can do pretty much
Yeah.
everything except here.
Yeah. And I love seeing like adults like yourself, because you're like living a full, rich life. And it's just, I mean, you're a good just model of like, yes, we grow up to be adults that can live complete, successful, happy lives, and just like you. And, um,
We
but you
just
just
take a
need to
couple more
remember these.
steps each day.
Yeah. Just don't talk with your back turned.
Exactly. Yeah. And so where can we find all these digital downloads before
So
I
they're
miss
all,
that?
everything I do is on mybattlecall.com.
Okay.
So it's all kind of
Amazing.
housed there. And then it'll give you links to get to my social media, or to the books are on there, and all the resources are under the little shop menu. There's some
Fantastic. I
other
will make
fun
sure
stuff.
to include all of that for people because I know these digital products are going to be so important to so many people. And before we end, I just want to ask if there's a new parent who has just gotten the diagnosis that their baby or child has hearing loss, what words of encouragement do you have for them?
First of all, I would love to have been published by a giant publishing house that I could send every single parent a copy of my book, because it's really what I wish I would have had. And like our audiologist, she's mentioned in the book a lot. We were just there yesterday. She's bought tons of copies to give out to all her new families. Um, One, it's just give yourself time to process, especially if it's unexpected. I think we need time to digest, and it's okay to feel feelings of, everybody experiences the different feelings, whether it's grief or disappointment or overwhelm or worry. Allow yourself to process and feel those feelings, and then roll your sleeves up, which parents will, and figure out how to best advocate for your child. And then also, like I already mentioned, don't take in too much information, like WebMD, like not WebMD specifically, but like
Yes.
you can overwhelm yourself, and know that there's just opinions out there, and
Yeah.
that's not going to necessarily be what's going to be the best route for you and your family, and that will take time maybe to figure out. But just know that, I always say, you've got this, you've got this for sure. But it's going to be hard. There's going to be things about it that are hard and amazing, and I would not change it.
Amazing. Well, and parenting hard in general. So you know what? Like you just gotta take it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. Like you really don't know as your kids are developing. Like it can all be hard, but it's all beautiful too. You just kind of gotta, like you said, roll up your sleeves and you'll get through it. So
Amen.
you'll get
Amen.
through the fog. You'll get through that.
Parenting, forget hearing loss. Teenagers are hard, and I love them. I love teenagers, and they're so hard. Like, you feel like you're messing up every day, but it's also got so much fun involved in, like, seeing who they're becoming. It's really fun time.
Oh, I'm so excited for that. My daughter's only a year and a half, so I've got lots to
Oh,
experience before then.
oh, I love that age.
Yeah, it's so fun. Well, thank you so much, Valley, for joining me on this conversation. This has been absolutely incredible, and I'm so excited to share with my audience your story and your resources because we need more of this in our space. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.